Hello, hello, hello for another edition of Pair Dialogues. Hi, Omena, welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. I think I've been stalking you a little bit online for quite a while now. I feel we
Really?
are
Oh, okay.
somehow sisters in mission. So it's very nice to have a peer on here. I'm sure for those listening, we have a lot of people signed up. Hello, everyone. Comment, say hello to Omena. Please follow her. I think we're going to have an amazing session today. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we have a little internet issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. No, sorry. Hello. Sorry. Hi, everyone. Hi. No, seriously, absolutely happy to be here. And I know we connected like properly and had a chat last week, which was absolutely great, kind of learning a bit more about what you do with fair cultures and but obviously about this topic in hand that we're going to be speaking about this afternoon. I think it's something that I think is one of the key aspects of I think what we do as DNI or DEI or inclusion. So many titles for us practitioners. And I think there's a number of challenges that we face in terms of how do we kind of creatively and embed some sort of innovation in these sort of DNI initiatives that we create or and implement for within, whether you're within an internal role at an organization or you're like me, a consultant.
Amazing. I mean, I love the a bit of the twist that you put on the work, and I want to share a very quick moment. About 15 years ago, I entered recruitment, right? And I was in this kind of European, pretty large recruitment agency, and it was the first time I was meeting the CFO, and they were like, "Well, why did you, me, a young 19-year-old, like, oh, why did you join recruitment?" I was like, "It's very fun, it's very creative," and they were like, "No, it's not." I'm like, "You work in finance, so please let's make it fun for ourselves," right?
Yeah.
But I love somehow
Yeah.
the approach you're having and the
Yeah, I mean, my approach is, I mean, it's interesting. Like creative jam sessions is a bit of it's a play on words. I mean, I
sure.
do actually come from a creative background. I have a degree in fashion promotion and illustration, so I'm an illustrator. I have worked in the creative industry, but it's a play on words because obviously when CJS started out, it was actually specifically for the creative community. So we used to hold monthly events for the creative community based in
Mm-hmm.
Amsterdam, for the
Exactly. I
expats and also
remember those.
the local duchies. Um, yeah, and then the thing is, the whole concept is that you bring different people together. So, like an actual jam session, you bring people who have never played before to come
Mm-hmm.
together and create a new
Mm-hmm.
sound. And that's the whole essence of CJS. We bring people together, put either for them, speaking at these events, or
Yeah.
maybe it's just bringing people within the company organizations I work with together to actually create something new, something different, something that's not been heard before, or maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
like an evolution of something that already exists. That's the whole concept behind creative jam sessions.
And today we're gonna just bring that in. I think we were just talking a little bit that a lot of organizations today are trying either to plan 2025 already or wrap up 2024 and kind of understand
Yeah.
what do I keep from what I was doing so far. So what was good in that recipe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what do I need to add maybe next year? What do I need to add in what I'm trying to do? So the theme for today is diversity for a successful culture recipe. I think for us, it's really important to understand how this landscape evolves, but also how we shape it, either, as you say, from an internal standpoint, whether you are in the people in culture position, but also, of course, ally champions, leaders, people who make somehow the jam. And Omena here, just to kind of give a little bit of a highlight, where I really spotted you was in kind of back in the day where I used to also live in Amsterdam. And I love the fact that you took this route and now you're delivering this very impactful diversity and inclusion programs. I love the fact that you're expanding your expertise into DEI, but you're also giving the stage to other people, which can add to the effort, right? But you also come from a world where you have experience what it means to be in a corporate environment and how to influence that environment. So this is what we're going to focus on today, okay?
Yeah. I'm laughing because it's the stories I could tell, but
Yes. I mean, we have a very similar background and a similar route, at least up till now. But I think we have a little bit of a different space that we act in. So I love having people that complement every type of work that everybody else that is joining this session is doing, and learn from each other. So anybody who's listening today and has questions specifically for Amena, please put them in the chat there. We'll see them and we can answer live. If not, we can do that asynchronous. And of course, if you have any examples or any kind of thoughts, also chime in. It is a dialogue at the end of the day. But to kick us off, we chose this idea of successful culture recipe. And I kind of want to see from your side, I have my idea of what it means to bring acceleration in DEI programs and to kind of bring measurable success with certain initiatives. Focusing on particular areas, but I want to see from your side, what are these key ingredients from when somebody asks you, what do you want to focus on? What should we focus on? What are the key ingredients for this successful culture recipe?
I think for me there are three. One, I think is a very important one, is leadership commitment. And I know as someone who's worked in-house within a D&I role and also as a consultant, but I think also internally, is leadership commitment, the feedback from a lot of the stakeholders. And this specifically is geared toward the employees, is that there was a lack of leadership commitment, which is why I think a number of D&I initiatives struggle to work, or struggle to be implemented, or struggle to get support or traction, is because of leadership commitment. So for me, strong and visible support from the top leaders is absolutely crucial. And then I think this is definitely going to set the tone for the entire organization, and also I think demonstrates a genuine commitment to DEI. The second is around inclusive practices. Again, it's not just saying that we're diverse and inclusive, it's actually the doing. So making sure that your company is implementing these policies and practices that promote equity and inclusion within the workplace, such as used to work in recruitment, unbiased recruitment, fair promotion processes, and inclusive training programs. And I think the third for me, again, for any program to work, is having that employee engagement. If the employees aren't engaged, then you've wasted 6 to 9 to 12 months, or how many months you've been working on creating this initiative or program, is down the toilet, because again, you've not engaged with the employees from day one. Because if you're creating something for them, you need to engage them. So for me, it's all about fostering open, communications and involving the employees within these initiatives. A lot of companies have employee resource groups or business resource groups or affinity groups. Use them. Use them. They are there not just to put on events. They are there to be a consultant, be a challenger, be someone that's going to offer you the insights from at grassroots, and really say that doesn't resonate with that. That's not going to work for us, or that's amazing, but again, you need to build upon it by doing this. But also they are great for getting regular feedback. So when you've created something, implementing it, you need to go through that process of, doing check-ins and getting that feedback to, one, kind of see where you can involve them in other sort of decision-making areas throughout the process, but also ensure that that initiative resonates with them and is effective and fit for purpose. And if there are any changes that need to be made down the line, you can do so, because you're consulting with those groups or communities to get that insight.
And I think then it sounds very simple. Ultimately, it needs to always be a
Sorry?
cyclical move.
Yes.
Things simple, right? Like get these two, three things right, and you're done. But the key, I think, is
Yeah.
also like making it work between each other, between each factor. So the leadership has resilience on this topic year on year, right? It's not just an exercise of this month because something happened or because we kind of have a good idea that this will bring us the next investment round or anything like that, right? And empower those groups and pick also the right trainings and the right kind of methods to implement that.
Yes,
So
exactly. It's not like
yeah,
having training for the sake of training, because I feel like, again, seeing it from the inside, I think we have trained so many trainings. It's a bit like,
yeah,
a bit too much, I think, for a lot of people, because especially when they have to do their day jobs alongside this. So I
sure,
know for a fact, I would say a small percentage of the trainings that you have in house are not mandatory. Obviously, you
yeah,
have the compliance, which you have to do. There are only a small percentage of trainings are mandatory.
mm-hmm.
Most are, oh, if you want to learn more about this or you want to
Yeah,
do this, then you can do it. Which
mm-hmm.
I think is a shame. I think there is trainings that definitely should be made
Should
mandatory.
be minute. Mm-hmm.
But again, I think there is probably a hesitation to
Mm-hmm.
do so, because again, I think they think, oh, people are overwhelmed, and maybe there's some
Yeah,
level of exhaustion of too much trainings and stuff
yeah.
like that. But yeah.
But this is a little bit where I feel you come in with a bit of a different approach, which is like
Mm.
make it wanted, right? And
Yes.
what do you usually see as being bought in easily when you talk to companies, when you talk to leaders around, like, let's make this with a creative lens, let's take advantage of the energy that is there and make it wanted versus
Mhm.
I should do this,
Yeah,
right? Like
exactly. This is
transform
this
into
is
I
all we
want to do
need to
this.
do this. Yeah, we need to do this. I think, yeah, no, I definitely get it. So I think to really kind of, I'd say, advocate for this kind of, this
Mm-hmm.
within the workplaces, I think one, encouraging experimentation.
Mm-hmm.
So where you have an environment where employees feel safe to try out these new ideas,
Yeah.
without the fear of failure. I think, again, there is this fear of, oh, we haven't done well. Oh God,
Mm-hmm.
let's,
Yeah.
whereas I think there's a saying I have, you learn more from your failures than you do your successes, because if that doesn't work, if each time I do it, it doesn't work, I'm learning
Mm-hmm.
something from each failure. And then I
Mm-hmm.
just build upon, because I've learned all those lessons until I finally get to that final eureka. I've cracked it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if you look at most products, they will literally go through different versions of that product until they get the final thing. And I think that's the approach that we should take within the workplace around creating any initiative or being creative around initiative.
Yeah.
Experiment, expect to fail, learn from it, and then build on what you've learned, and then obviously make the necessary changes. The other one, I think another one for me, is around
Mm-hmm.
promoting, I would say, kind of continuous learning. So
Mm-hmm.
again, we talked about training. It's not just doing one piece of training. Oh, great, I now am an expert on microaggressions. No.
Yeah.
Again, we're not, we could, I think you continuously need to learn about a specific topic, because again, as we look at the D&I landscape, it's growing and developing at such a pace that there's always some new trend. So
Mm-hmm.
24, it's this FY24, or 2024, it's this trend. 2025 is going to be another trend. In the next 5 years, it's all these different trends. So I think
Mm-hmm.
continuous learning around these different topics to, one, I think, develop our skills
Yeah.
around that area. But also, I think that encourages sparking creativity to kind of keep that team and that workplace at cutting
Mm-hmm.
edge. And I think finally, again, going back to the employees, valuing their input. Again, if we don't get their input, you're just
Yeah.
creating something for the sake of creating it. So let's incorporate their ideas and their
Yeah.
thoughts into what we're doing. Just discover or uncover their hidden talents, but also kind of utilize these kind of innovative ideas to not only
Mm-hmm.
support their team or their department, but I think the organization as a whole.
This is, I think, where a lot of the ecosystem gets blocked. And I think both of us advise anybody do pilot things, right? Like maybe don't throw
Mm.
all at the wall at the same
Yeah,
time if you
don't,
haven't
yeah,
tried anything,
exactly.
right?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I do see how a lot of things get then blocked in pilot phase. Oh, the pilot was
Mm-hmm.
successful, but we just don't know how to scale it. And that comes from this lack of understanding of how do you build rigor and structure within something that then needs to serve a bigger population, different regions
Mm-hmm.
eventually, right? If you have this type of initiatives. And I'm just curious from your side, like what, where do these scaling barriers come from, or where do these blockers come from when it's like, oh, the pilot was successful, but we're going to stop there. We're
Yeah,
not going to deploy
exactly.
it to more departments,
Um,
or we're going to try
I
something else. I'm like, don't try something else, just scale this one.
yeah. Yeah, I think for me, what the main thing is where the block is not
Uh-huh.
having a defined goal or goals.
Ah, yes.
If you don't know what you want to achieve, what's the point in you doing it?
Yeah.
And then again, you're just setting yourself up for failure. But again, as I
Well.
said, you learn from your failures. But no, it's set goals. So these
Yeah.
are the goals. So we have 5, 6. I mean, I wouldn't go crazy, but you have a set number of goals. Define what those objectives are. So my objectives are this.
Yeah.
What I'm hoping the outcome will be this, but in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
how do we get from A to Z? Then that's where
Mm-hmm.
you start looking at, oh, these are the objectives that we want to achieve. And by
Mm-hmm.
how do we do that? Okay, we need to create this, or we need to develop this, or we need to
Yeah.
improve this, we need to introduce that. And then
Mm-hmm.
that therefore is going to help us to have that, I think, is creates a successful structured framework for you to then
Mm-hmm.
actually go on, implement that pilot program, have the necessary outlets of collecting data, so qualitative and quantitative, getting that
Mm-hmm.
feedback, maybe having some sort of focus group that you check in with to provide you with insights on how that program goes. Another
Yeah.
obviously is trust, culture of trust. I think again, a lot of people are very fearful about when you introduce or want to do something new. They go, how is that going to impact me? Is that going to impact my work-life balance, my workload? Is it going to add additional stress and pressure? Yada, yada, yada. Again, I think it's building that trust amongst the community or
Mm-hmm.
organization or employees that you are creating this for, to ensure that they feel safe, that we can, or they can also experiment and innovate when it comes to
Yeah.
these initiatives. And then flexible policies, I think again, that's I think another barrier that I
Mm-hmm.
think some organizations face, is that I think these policies, we need to implement policies, I think, that support kind of creative thinking, such
Mm-hmm.
as flexible work hours or some sort of innovation hub. Again, I
Mm-hmm.
think that I think will tackle the first 2 points: establishing the clear goals, because you've got these
Mm-hmm.
things in place for people to be able to do support around
Yeah.
these goals. And then the second around trust, because you're showing me, you're being very transparent about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and and the outcome you want to get out of that.
And I think the trust piece allows two things. One is like people will also try more stuff, and the
Mm,
creativity level, the innovation
mm,
level, it's not going to be just because we put mixed people together, right? People from diverse backgrounds together. It's just going to, people want to generate change, right?
mhm.
But I think then there's also this extra piece where it's like, to call you out, hey, we're going in the wrong direction, maybe,
Yeah,
let me
yeah,
look into this, maybe,
yeah,
because not everything fits everywhere. And I see a lot of programs that are,
exactly.
let's say, bought off the shelf. Let's say an inclusive leadership training, right? And you apply the same thing to Europe, to US, to China, to India,
So
and it
different.
just doesn't work, right?
So different.
um,
I mean, yes, so different. Yeah, and I know it full well because in my previous role, I managed 8 geographies, 28 countries. So
yeah,
from the UK to Netherlands, the Nordic, Switzerland, the Middle East. I managed them at
yeah,
they sat within my remit. So different, like culturally different in terms
yeah,
of what their focus areas were, how they approach certain things, what they could talk about, what they couldn't talk about, what they weren't
yeah.
doing because level of maturity and understanding wasn't that
Mm-hmm.
great in those areas. So you can't create something and go, oh yeah, it's going to
Mm-hmm.
work for all these geographies. No, that's really not the
Yeah.
case. And it's all about creates, if you're going to create something at a global or centralized level, you therefore need to give those local teams the space and the opportunity to tailor it to their geography. If you don't, it's just not going to work. And that's literally, I don't, like I said, months, years wasted on thinking, oh, this is great. This is the, this is the, the our Eureka, our Eureka diamond in the rough type thing. And then no, it's just dead in the water as soon as it's launched,
And also because people just see that you did not trust to listen to them, to kind of maybe put those voices in action, right? And it is, in a way, the creative piece of DEI programs. For me, it's a little bit like advertising or marketing. You study each market very, very carefully when you launch something. It's a bit the same for this type of things. But I do also see more organizations, more teams, more leaders who are like, yeah, let's tailor it. And I see this is becoming more and more popular, especially with more offering at their disposal. How should they approach designing? Because usually it's a bit more co-creation than buying off the shelf a program, right? So you work with organizations and you try to kind of design something that fits those unique needs, although all the ecosystem might go in the same direction. Let's say, as you were just mentioning earlier, microaggressions, let's understand, let's mitigate, let's build processes and policies for that. But if I do want to co-create and I want to have a say in this program, what should the client or the organization or your partner be prepared to answer?
Okay. Oh, good question. Yeah, good question.
I can kick us off.
Okay, right. No. I've got it. So I think for me, what I find, conduct an assessment, and that's something I've always done. So you said it. So like, do some form of an assessment or an audit. And there's something I did again, I've done before, where it's like, oh, they wanted to do some initiative, and I said, okay, let's get an understanding of what is actually being done around this specific area across your different locations, and let's understand why enough is not being done and what can be done. So doing an assessment and audit, but also kind of getting any kind of qualitative or quantitative data that's available around this area. So start with an assessment, a thorough one, not a wishy-washy one. I say thorough, to understand the unique challenges and opportunities around that specific area that you want. Let's say ethnicity and cultural diversity. Let's gain an understanding of that, what that looks like within the organization. Second is engage stakeholders. We've said this before. We said this earlier on. I mentioned it before. Engage the stakeholders, not just people, the senior leadership. Yes, that's great, because you need their support and their buy-in, because they're the ones that are going to be kind of the top and sifting, kind of sharing the message, down. But it's engage those stakeholders that will play a pivotal role to the success of that program So again, I mentioned ERGs, get them involved. So there's something around ethnicity and cultural diversity, get your POC or your BIPOC, or whatever it's called within your organization, get them involved, because they are the ones who are going to help you design that process to ensure that the program addresses all the real needs, and also helps you needs and gains that broad focus, because they'll be your champions and ambassadors once you've implemented it, and then continuous evaluation. And I think this is something that not many companies do or clients do. They don't continuously evaluate. They probably evaluate after the first 3, 6, and 9 months, maybe a year of the program being launched, but they don't continuously review and assess, is this program exactly, is it still fit for purpose? Are we making sure that this program is having the impact that it should be having? Are we making the necessary adjustments? Because again, future of work, your workforce is continuously going to change. The way boomers, millennials, Gen Zs, we've now got the alphas, and there'll be the omegas and the betas, or whatever they're going to be called down the line. They're going to have different needs when it comes to this ethnicity and cultural diversity program. So you need to make the adjustments based on those feedbacks, but also, as I said, based on the dynamic changes of the organization and the workforce. Yeah.
Not an easy task, but very
Not
doable. We do it all the time
easy.
with everything else, right? When it comes to
Exactly.
people.
It's not an easy, yeah, it's not an easy task. But someone once said to me, like earlier on in my career when I used to work in
Mhm.
general lines of insurance, and I was like, I was so keen and eager and bushy tailed, like when you started in recruitment, oh, I want to learn about everything about general lines of insurance. And the guy sat me down and went, Amina, how do you eat an elephant? And I looked at him like, what? How do I eat a what? And then I kind of apprehensively said, one bit at a time. And he said, exactly. And that's how you learn about general lines of insurance. And I think I've always taken that approach. And I tell my clients, and when I was in house, take that approach. We can't
Yeah.
do everything at once. You can't succeed at everything at once. It's do one thing, get it right. And then the other
Mhm.
thing should hopefully fall into place.
One bit at a time. We're gonna serve one bit now, maybe,
Yeah.
hopefully, because I want to get into some examples, right? Like I think
Mm-hmm.
everybody's kind of having ideas, but maybe from what we've seen, we can share what actually also work, what is a significant impact when taking a
Mm.
creative approach to DEI. Is there anything top of mind, like some initiative that it's not your regular one, but it accelerated or it created a lot of movement or a lot
Yeah.
of awareness?
Yeah.
You know.
I've got a good one. I mean, I'm not going to mention the company because I'm not here to plug them. But it was one I heard of and I thought was absolutely great because it kind of was a great example when I was creating a neurodiversity program when I was at the previous place I worked at. So I used them as they were, they're a competitor. And
Mm-hmm.
so they basically created this neurodiverse center of excellence, and that it was
Mm-hmm.
designed to create a supportive work environment for their neurodivergent individuals.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone with, people with autism, dyslexia, and ADHD. So this program, its aim was to, I think, definitely harness the unique skills in areas like AI, data analytics,
Mm-hmm.
automation, blockchain, and cybersecurity. So basically, they created this on a global scale, established in the UK, Canada, India, Poland, Spain, as well as the UK. I think to basically help them. Their goal was to hire, I think, about 150 neurodivergent individuals over the space of 3 years. And
Mm-hmm.
then these employees would then in turn work with what was it, like integrated client teams, so
Mm-hmm.
contributing, I think, to the innovation but also the sort of improved business outcomes. So I think for me that is a great example of, you see that you have a challenge in one area, but then you see that as an opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
bring in the right people to support you around this. And by, I think, by doing it not just locally, it was done in a number of different geographies. I think it definitely helped that organization. I think, as I said,
Mm-hmm.
get the neurodivergent candidates or talent to work closely with these integrated teams, but also provide improved business outcomes. Because again, if we think about it, an organization, a business wants to make money. They want to see improvements. They need to see efficiency. They
Yeah.
need to see ROI. So they will, that's what they want to see. But again, they were using the opportunity that they weren't fully supporting or failing
Mm-hmm.
neurodivergent talent. And they came up with this concept to help them do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think there's so many interesting ways that organizations are trying out things, and some of them are sticking to them. I think some of the most
Mm.
interesting, creative that I've seen were also a bit tying in the, let's say, the finite purpose of the organization, let's say a product or a service that they were having, their mission, but then they would do recruitment efforts and recruitment
Mhm.
drives with the idea, with like kind of making hackathons or making certain events where you contribute to the product, making it
Mhm.
better for
Mhm.
your type of community. Let's say if you were
Mhm.
coming from
Mhm.
neurodivergent background or
Yeah.
LGBTQ background, and that product would be used by everybody, but it just didn't
Exactly.
have a sense on it, and they would
Yeah.
recruit those people very easily because they would see how they
Yeah.
work and how, but they would also get a lot of insights on how to make their services and their products better.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Others I've seen making their employees their stakeholders. So you see more and more, I think also in the UK now, the growth, and there are some policies around employee-owned organizations. I think more for SMEs it works, but
Mhm.
they become active shareholders, like basically everything splits even way. But then you get a
Yeah.
huge map about what do you do for people policies, including
Mhm.
a lot of different good things. To be honest, I love these type of approaches.
Mhm. Mhm.
um,
No, it's like me too.
but this is, I mean, there are good tests, but we don't necessarily see them at scale, right? Or we don't necessarily see them as the go-to practices. I think we still look at Laszlo Bock
Mhm.
for how to do hiring and performance management and everything else, which I think is really good, but it's not so much like forward-looking. What's your, I don't know, what's your kind of take on the future of work? Where can diversity be not just this catalyst for inclusion, but for innovation and creativity?
Oh, the future of work. Yeah. I mean, yeah, the workplace is ever evolving, and I
Yeah.
mean, as I said, it's moving at such a fast pace. I think one of the things for me, or what I see in the future of work, is around cultivating
Mhm.
cognitive diversity. So by that I mean companies should be harnessing cognitive diversity by kind of incorporating people with I would say varied thinking styles and
Mhm.
problem solving approaches, because again, not one, as you said, one shoe does not fit all. And I think this can lead to kind of creating these groundbreaking solutions and also these innovative products that cater to diverse markets, like the example you just gave a few minutes ago. Adaptive talent strategies, I think again that's really key.
Mhm.
Looking at how you can, an organization can embrace these kind of inclusive and flexible hiring practices that attract diverse talent pools, because again we see the problem was previous years, and we still kind of see it now, is that it's organizations use the same talent pool, so therefore you get the same people, therefore you don't get any diversity. So I
Yeah.
think it's looking at how you can change or create more inclusive hiring practices that attract that diverse talent pool. And also, this ensures that your workforce evolves with obviously the changing business landscapes and also the customer or consumer needs. And then I think another, and I said this earlier on, leveraging employee resource groups or BRGs or affinity networks, gain their insights into the different demographics within the organization. What are the needs? What are the preferences? Fostering an environment where these voices can contribute to the innovation, but also the strategic adaptability.
Not all organizations have ERGs, and I see those who
No,
are
yeah,
setting them up first, they struggle.
yeah,
What's your take here? What should they, you know, not, I mean, I'm a fan of failure in a way as you are, but I also don't want
yeah.
people to hit the wall for
No,
nothing.
yeah,
So
exactly.
so what
Yeah.
is good when setting up an ERG?
Okay, well, because again, I'm going back to my previous roles, but I've
Yes.
also worked with ERGs as well as I've had them as clients. So my previous role, I was part of a core team for the Cultural Diversity Network, and I wasn't aware of the network when I joined. I was like, it was only maybe
Mm-hmm.
a year in. I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this network exists. Okay. And then I said to them, guys, I think you need to sort this out, because not many people are aware of who you are and what you do. So I said, we need to start running these events. I'll do this, because I started CJS
Yeah.
close to that time. I was doing these monthly events. And so I had the experience and the expertise around how to do this. So we came up with a new manifesto,
Mm-hmm.
new goals, and then we started with these events. We got our CEO involved to 15-minute session with him to kind of discuss around that specific topic, how to create an inclusive culture within the workplace, and not tolerating non-inclusive behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
um I think for me, it's all about having clear structure before you start doing all the nice, lovely events. Because
Mm-hmm.
part of an ERG, having an ERG is not just about events. It's about what are you doing to advocate for that community within the workplace. How are you, one, getting their voices heard, two, implementing certain changes to
Mm-hmm.
whether it's policies, processes, and systems, but also how are you educating and raising awareness. But the key thing before you even start doing all that stuff is have an infrastructure, have a governance
Yeah.
in place,
Mm-hmm.
have your core team. So who's going to be the chairperson? Who's responsible for comms? Who's responsible for events, etc. And then once you have that core team together, that's when you start building your strategy. You have your plan.
Mhm.
So as I said earlier on, establish clear goals. Our goal is over the next 5 years, we want to achieve this. By doing that, we're going to have every year 2 major events that spotlight a specific inclusion event. We are going to align ourselves closely with the different service lines, functions within the organization. So we're going to launch some sort of ambassador program. We are going to align ourselves closely with HR, the central D&I team, other sort of business units that are key in terms of they have touch points with employees. We're going to, align ourselves with them. So we're aware of what's going on, but also we want to have that face time with the leadership, because again, we want to kind of get them on board as advocates. And I think another key thing I find is have a sponsor, have that person who sits within that senior or leadership role. That will be the person that advocates for you when they're having those, meetings behind closed doors. They'll be the ones like, no, I don't agree with that. This is why we need to do this. So I think that's for me is what I would do, or a recommendations for me, if you're looking to set up an employee resource group, is to get that core team, start working on your strategy. And it's not something I think is done in a day. It will probably take you a week, or even I'd say a month, because you'll go through a number of iterations. And then once you have that, you've got your manifesto, you've got your goals, your values, you have an idea of what you want to do or achieve, and then this is how you're going to do it. Then of course you start implementing, you get the right people to get involved. And then I think another key thing is through that the ambassadorship, you can get more people to get involved to help you do the heavy lifting, because again, the core team can't do everything, because this is done side of desk. I was doing the side of desk, and it's a lot, so it's getting more people involved, not just the core team, to support with these whatever initiatives or programs or events they want to do.
So then I kind of see two layers, right? 2 tiers of DI advocates or champions within an organization. You have this one that is your committee, basically. It controls the structure, right? As you say, it forms the infrastructure, and it gives you flexibility within that, because then you know what to prioritize, then you know what you have committed to without getting too distracted. The shiny object syndrome is there for everybody.
That's cool, we should do that. It's like, no, do we really need to do that? No, then we won't do that.
Yes. But then you do need the activators, right? Especially in larger organizations. You cannot do without the activators. I think one of the biggest challenges I usually had in my internal roles, but also now, is we have all committed, let's say January 1st, everybody is in on this structure, on this program, on this goals. But 6 months later, one business unit, a department of some sort, says, you know what? I think they're moving too slow, or I think they're moving too fast. Let's do our thing.
No, it's true.
Just it's fine to try things out and kind of consider what is good for that community if there is a community need, but not because we just don't agree with the, let's say, the centralized approach or the structured approach. Then we need to communicate that and change the centralized approach that doesn't work for that extra department.
I agree with you. You need those people who are the drivers. So that's your core ERG, employee resource group team, right? They are the drivers. They are your go-to people. But again, that's going back to the company I worked at. Then you had your ambassadors. So if you worked in, say, audit, or you worked in consulting or whatever, you had someone who was an ambassador for the cultural diversity network within your service line. But then you could drill down even further down to a function level. There was someone who was an ambassador there. So if you wanted to raise something or say something or suggest something, you had a person that you could go to. And then all of that would be fed back to the centralized team. So we had a cadence of meetings. I think, again, that's quite key. Having these cadence meetings where you touch base on, okay, this is our agenda, cover those points. Certain things will probably be parked till the next one, but it gives you a clear idea of, what needs to be sort of discussed and achieved in that meeting. But also, I think you then hear back from those ambassadors who are saying, okay, this is what we're hearing in consulting and la 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 la, we're not doing
Mhm.
enough of this and we need to do this. Oh yeah, the same thing is shared by the people in audit, or blah blah blah. And it's because again, the core team can't do everything, so it's
Yeah.
good to have people who are there within those teams or departments that can feed back to the central team.
I want to bring it back to your concept, creative jam, and the
Yeah,
idea of
yeah,
jamming.
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
when you have a jam session, you have a core team of things, and they will fill up the stage if nobody comes in to play or try something. They will kind of do it, right? But it's
yeah,
just not a good jam until people
yeah,
come in as well and they share their instrument and their craft and their
yeah,
perspective and their
yeah.
joy in this, right? It's not a concert until you have the supporters and the
Now, yeah.
spectators and the fans. So I think it's maybe even this myself I haven't explored enough when it comes to how successful DEI programs are when you have this two-tier very clearly in your mind. Like I have the core team that is committed and it has a chunk of their time dedicated, but then I need to have the fans and the supporters and the maybe drop-ins from time to time. I think ERGs could have drop-in days, right? Like, oh, you want to try out this, try it. You don't need to commit, right? Then you
Yeah,
can switch to
it's like
something
going to a
else.
clinic, like,
Yes.
surgery is open. Yeah, it's like a doctor's surgery, the
Well,
surgery
maybe
is open, come in. Tell me what's going on, what do you need? Oh, I'll give you a heavy dose of this, a prescription of that.
well,
Yeah.
it is tricky, right? Because you want to keep the structure, but you want to bring people in and kind of make sure that you're
Hmm.
keeping the door open, right? You don't want the same for years, and the fatigue is real, right? The burnout is real sometimes also if you don't have
Hmm.
that extra support. Wow,
Hmm. Yeah,
time is going
very
fast for me
true.
now. um, um, I want to get one last thing from you, which is more of this
Hmm.
small steps that people, organizations can do, right? When creating DEI programs,
Hmm.
because we talked about the idea of doing audits, being very committed, very long-term oriented, very kind of mindful about this and creating the structure. I think that is critical for ultimate success. But are
Hmm.
there any small steps that even individuals who are not part of the committee, not part of the leadership team, can do to influence culture in a positive way in an organization?
Yeah. One, I'd say, you mentioned this earlier on. I have, encourage or initiate these pilot initiatives or pilot programs.
Mhm.
As you said, I think these you do them at a small scale. No one's saying if you're an organization of 7,000, there's no point in doing it for 7,000. Maybe, best idea is to focus on like a specific department, or maybe even smaller than that, a specific team.
Mhm.
And I think launch these kind of small scale, like pilots that encourage obviously innovative thinking, can be assessed for scalability,
Mhm.
but also I think create let's use an example, like by creating a pilot mentorship program that's focused on diverse talent. Start small, see if it's something that's achievable on a larger scale. Discover what the sort of the lessons learned from the whole running that pilot. Get that qualitative and quantitative data. I think
Mhm.
that's so key. And then present that to the leadership and say, hey, we've seen that this is quite successful, it's much needed, we've got the data
Mhm.
that reinforces that. We've learned these lessons learned from it, we know how to kind of adapt this and scale it up to a larger level, so it's something that all 7,000 of our workforce or employees can take part in. And I think a second thing for me is invest in in the DNI trainings and workshops.
Mhm.
As I said, it's not just you do one workshop, that's it, good for you. Well, I'm an expert on microaggressions, or an expert on whatever, LGBTQ plus in the workplace, or blah, or whatever. Like, no, there's so much. I mean, I say to people, there's a cornucopia of information out there
Yeah.
that we can absolutely utilize. Not back when in my day where the internet was so slow, the dial-up tone, if you remember. And I mean, even before the internet, we had encyclopedias. So I'm showing my age here. We had encyclopedias. Now we have Google, which has everything we could possibly want, that has you've got TEDx, you've got white papers, you've got research, you have
Yeah.
articles, everything on a specific topic. You even have AI, ChatGPT, and Copilot. You go, tell me more about it, and it will give you so much
Yeah.
information that it's pulled and in one place, and I
Mhm.
think we need to invest in really good training and workshop, whether that's created in-house, and I used to do that a
Yeah.
lot in my previous role. We created these in-house trainings. We worked with an external provider to help create these 20-minute e-learnings for us, or hire people like me, who can actually come and facilitate these
Yeah.
trainings and workshop. Because again, we need to continuously know that things like biases, again, it's going to continue. It's what it is now is not what it's going to be in 5 years time. Inclusive leadership is not going to, what it looked like 10 years ago and how it looks like now is not what it's going to look like in 10 years time. But
Yeah.
also creative, because again, it's all about creative problem solving. Again, how do we
Mhm.
solve problems creatively? Yes, take an analytical approach, but I think we're now seeing what I'm seeing more of how people creatively
Mhm.
problem solve,
Yeah.
and then again, I think we're seeing more of the approach around interactive workshops. So again, it's the shift of, we're moving away from that kind of PowerPoint
Yeah.
presentation,
Mhm.
cliche videos from the 90s, and more interactive. So utilizing AI and AR to actually day in the life of, or walk in my shoes as a Black
Yeah.
woman, and
Yeah.
what I experienced in the workplace. So we're seeing that shift. We're seeing that shift, and I think that can definitely help, I think, around organizational culture, so that the
Mhm.
cultural mindset shift, but also I think creating more of that kind of, again, creative and innovative
Mhm.
mindset. Yeah.
Yeah. So many good things there, and ultimately, I think you have these channels, right? As you were saying, this is changing. We have more options and we have a lot of new options.
Yeah.
This idea that you just mentioned, like walking
Yeah.
my shoes, I see a lot of VR companies now doing this embodiment philosophy, like literally go in scenarios and understand what
Mm,
otherness
mm,
looks like, right?
yeah.
Or feels like, to be
Yeah.
honest. So more emotive
Yeah.
correlation with your
Exactly.
ideas and your opinions.
Yeah.
I think if I'm to share one small thing, I don't know, I found great values in managers. They go through this leadership trainings and they do self-awareness, know yourself, manage yourself,
Mhm.
manage people, and I think that's good. You need that, but I think I've seen great success where they were creating programs to know your team, like literally know your
Mhm.
team, know their
Mhm.
communication styles, know their cognitive kind of
Mhm.
particularities, know their values, and to see how you can make those teams work together.
Yeah.
Because an organization it's a big group of teams, and
Yeah.
then there are individuals in there. And I think we create these programs for different diversity dimensions, as you mentioned. Like you could be very focused on ethnicity or gender identity or anything like that, but ultimately in teams you will have the combo of everything.
You have everything. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
No,
know
yeah,
your
very
people,
true.
yeah.
It's
I
true.
think
And I
it's
think it's
yeah.
something that organizations are doing. And
Mm-hmm.
there's, like I remember a time everyone was doing Miller Hyman.
Mm.
And everyone, I think some companies, organizations, specifically one I work for, well, actually two I worked for previously, have their own in-house versions of this. So what are your traits? So you've got your primary and your secondary. So I'm a
Mm.
driver
Mm-hmm.
integrator. So I literally one of those people, I get things done. And then, but
Yeah.
I'm an integrator where I'm a relationship builder.
Mm-hmm.
So part of what I see is, or what we were doing is, one, having this kind of, about me. I can't remember the name for it. It was about me. Kind of literally, it's one slide picture
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah,
me. This is
yeah.
me. I'm Amina. This is how you pronounce my name, because again, I
Yeah,
think people
yeah.
struggle, especially teens, how to pronounce names. But then
Mm-hmm.
this is my trait. I am a
Mm-hmm.
driver integrator. I don't like people sending me stuff in emails. Just pick up the phone.
Mm-hmm.
If it's something
You're a
lengthy,
phone person.
just pick up the phone. I don't want an email. Or,
Yeah.
and then personal things about me. My hobbies are this.
Mm-hmm.
I have a cat.
Yeah.
Da, da, da.
Mhm.
Again, it gets
So
to you
important.
get to know your team. Yeah, and that's how somewhere like on the internal intranet, and you can have
Mhm.
access to that, so you can learn. If you aren't able to quickly talk to that person, you can utilize that to get a grasp of that person. And I think some companies have that like on a centralized system where you can search for people if you're meeting them for the
Mhm.
first time and
Yeah.
find out their traits, find out some little information about them. So then, oh, I know I'm having a meeting with Richard, and Richard is, I can't remember the term for the person who's a guardian. So a guardian
Mhm.
is someone who's very, but they're also very like
Yeah.
detail. I think they're detail orientated or something. I can't remember, but someone who's analytical and
Yeah. A blue.
so you have to approach that meeting with a lot of content detail. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I need to give that. I can't go blue sky thinking high level like me. I'm
Yeah.
like, just give me this detail you can say for later. But
Yeah.
so it was very helpful by getting to know my team members, my colleagues, my
Mhm.
peers, whatever, but also my manager, but also people that I would be having meetings with if I'd never met them before. I think that's important because again, you're in an organization working with people for people,
Yeah.
and if you lack those kind of skills that you need to, stakeholder management is all about knowing people. It's not
Sure.
about just, oh, I know how to kind of play those chess pieces. It's like, how do I in fact effectively engage with you to get the best out of the situation? So you
Mhm.
walk out of the meeting, go, oh my God, had a great meeting with Amena. I feel like she
Mhm.
heard me, she understood me, and I'm confident that she's going to move forward doing what needs to get done. And same for me. I want to get that same feeling as well. And I think this is an approach that I think, companies are doing, but I think should be doing more of.
Yeah.
It's not like I say, I'm one of those people, I lean away from PowerPoints because it's death by PowerPoint. People buy people, they're not going to buy a presentation. Yeah.
Well, I don't think we're out of PowerPoints yet, but I do love the how I say the setting your mind that I'm going to work, right, and I'm gonna make all these little emails and all these little PowerPoints, but I'm gonna explore culture, I'm gonna explore identity, I'm gonna explore the diversity of the world, because a lot of the organizations today, they are extremely diverse, and I think not going with that mindset at work, I don't know, I feel I would be missing out. So I do want to encourage everybody listening to
Yes.
understand, like, I who didn't I explore enough in my relationship at work, right? Like, who I don't
Mm,
know enough, who I don't know what they like to eat for lunch, right? Just because then it
yeah,
opens the door to more deeper conversations. And I think this is a little bit
it
where
does.
we remain superficial, right?
It does. And I think it opens doors, but it also builds trust.
Yeah.
It builds trust, and I think that's I think that's key within the line of work we do, but also within the workplace. And it's not just, oh, it's all business. It's like you can
Mm-hmm.
comfortably sit there and chat to them, oh,
Yeah.
what did you get up to last night? Or how's your kids? Or just
Yeah.
talk about these things, like these conversations before you launch into business, because
Mm-hmm.
I know we spend a majority of our time in the workplace, but it's nice to get to know your colleagues on a personal, I mean, within reason, but get to
Yeah.
know them in that kind of relaxed type of
Yeah.
environment before you start talking business.
I think that's where the real innovation starts, when people really trust to throw out their random thoughts
Yeah,
that then turn
exactly.
into
Yeah, because
ideas,
I
that
believe
then
you're
turn
like,
into project. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, very true. Yeah, very
Oh,
true.
Mina, this has been amazing. So I took a few things. I just want to summarize for our cultural recipe success goals. I heard a
Yeah,
lot of you saying that get your goals in order.
sure.
Really
My,
clarify
my,
this for yourself, for the organizations, for those main actors and
yes,
maybe secondary actors, right, that we have in these conversations. That will
yeah.
save a lot of time and disappointment. This is a little bit probably the key realization. Then you also mentioned a lot the leadership buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
Figure that out if you can. But I think your message is more towards leaders, right? Like, leaders, just get in the
Yes,
game if you
yeah.
want.
Get in the game, get their heads in the game. And I mean, I think I'm not the only a practitioner that bashes on about this.
Yeah.
And if the leadership is not getting in the game or into that mindset, then will they be around, or will that organization be around in the next 10
Yeah.
years?
Yeah.
The answer is probably. But will they have the talent? No. because people will have left and said, "You're not giving me what I want. Why
Yeah,
am I here suffering? I'm going to go somewhere else that will give me what I want." And you're going to struggle to attract the talent that you want. So they need to get their heads in the game.
for sure.
Mm.
And then equip people, enable people, give them access to the right set of trainings, the right set of avenues to express these ideas and pilot new initiatives, and also let that time run, right? Like you need to learn from what you've tried to
Mhm.
apply to make it scalable and structured and give room for that movement within structure. And I love that. I think this is maybe one of the things that exists the most, but it's not thought through the most, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, it does. It definitely does.
You
Yeah.
are doing a lot of these things. I'd also, in closing, because now we have our key recipe, I'm sure people will also contribute here to our conversation. Do connect with Omina, and I just want to share with everybody what's next for you. What should we cheer you on if we're continuing this
Oh,
jam together?
what is oh, seriously, what is it for me? I think for me, obviously, I ponder where has this year gone? 2024.
Yes,
Where
true.
has it gone? Yeah, almost at the end of the year. I think now, obviously, this year I've been focusing a lot on more of consulting and advisory side of things for CJS, and kind of scale back on the events, but we're still doing them. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so obviously we're going to, I think, continue this year and into next year more external, continue doing these external events. Berlin is becoming a city that we're doing
Mm.
more events in, and partnering up with a great hotel slash co-working space called the Social Hub. So yeah, doing more events there with their location in Berlin. We're also looking to branch out and do some workshops and work with clients in APAC. That's definitely like a big focus area for us. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it, really. Like grand ambitions, but I mean that, and also a social media as well. That and social media. Again, I'm one of those people, like, I don't know, I think I'm showing my age. Social media is about, ugh, it's I think it's a necessary evil. But now, as you've seen, I'm doing more video content, because I think that's the way. I think obviously
It
they'll
is
think it
moving.
is going in that direction, where people
Yeah.
wanted this bite-sized, digestible videos on talking about the impacts of microaggressions. They want it in 2 minutes. They don't want it in half an hour or an hour. 2 minutes.
Mhm.
Like, give me that bite-sized information. So I'm obviously focusing on our social media and doing more of this video content to kind of generate more awareness around these different topics.
Your videos are amazing. So carry
Thank
on.
you.
I know it
I
feels
know, like,
cringe.
it feels so cringe. I feel like I'm like, who am I talking to? Oh, into the ether. It's weird.
No, you're a natural. So
Okay.
everybody, yeah, give Amina a little bit of encouragement so
Please give me
she'll
some
carry on.
encouragement, because I feel like, who am I talking to? Hello, is anyone there? See, this is why I prefer the live events. I prefer being in the room, because I don't know. I think I'm one of those people. I get the energy from
Yeah.
seeing people, and then also reading their body language. And I think maybe, well, not maybe. I think it is because we've worked in these type of roles, and you worked in
Yeah.
recruitment, where you read people so easily that this meeting is going left. I need to go make it
Mhm.
go right, and
Mhm.
I read them well enough to again make that change. Whereas if you're kind
Yeah.
of talking into the space, you don't know if, are you listening?
It's asynchronous. The
Do you
feedback is
care?
asynchronous.
Yeah,
So this is
exactly.
the future of work, everybody. Follow up Amina for good
Yeah,
snapshot advice and
follow
opinions
me.
and thoughts. For everything else, we're gonna meet again here next week, Thursday, 4:30, with an amazing session with somebody who is not your DEI practitioner like we had Amina today. It's somebody from the business, that leader who had the who bought in and was all in. So I'm looking forward for the session next week. Do follow my page and do check events. We're going to post on a weekly basis, something usually on Wednesday, and then you can watch it next week. But if you haven't watched live, like you did today, you can rewatch it. They live on LinkedIn. We are gonna be forever here, Romina. And I think now we're actually also on YouTube. So I'll let you know how that went.
Yeah, let me know. I love expanding your social media empire.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was an
Oh, my
amazing session.
pleasure.
I
Seriously,
appreciate
it's
it.
been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Bye, everyone.
everyone. See you next week.
Bye. Bye.